You ever notice how every anime protagonist disappears right before they become unstoppable? Not dramatically, not loudly. They don't post a farewell message. They don't argue with the world. They just go quiet. And when they return, they're different, stronger, calmer, unbothered. Now, look at your own life. You stopped replying. You stopped explaining. You stopped trying to keep every connection alive. And suddenly, people started saying, "Are you okay? You've changed. Why are you isolating?" But here's the question no one asks. What if your silence isn't a breakdown? What if it's a recalibration? Modern psychology calls it nervous system regulation after chronic stress. Stoicism calls it withdrawing from what you cannot control. Anime calls it the training arc. Unfortunately, this isn't the part where dramatic music starts playing in real life. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of cutting everyone off, not as avoidance, but as the phase where evolution begins. Because sometimes when you disappear, you're not falling apart. You're rebuilding in private. You didn't cut everyone off because you hate people. You cut everyone off because you were tired. Tired of explaining yourself. Tired of being the emotionally available one. Tired of carrying conversations. Psychologists call this emotional labor. Constantly regulating your behavior to manage other people's reactions. Over time, your nervous system stays in that threat detection mode. You anticipate disappointment. You rehearse conversations in your head. You leave social interactions more drained than fulfilled. Then, something shifts. You spend a weekend alone, and you feel peaceful. No notifications, no explanations, just silence that finally feels safe. That's when it hits you. The exhaustion wasn't from life. It was from performance. Look at Thorfinn in Vinland Saga. Revenge gave him structure. Anger gave him identity. When Ashalad dies, that structure collapses. What replaces it isn't relief. It's emptiness, because when you've been surviving in fight mode for too long, stillness feels foreign. That's what social burnout feels like. Not drama, just quiet exhaustion. And sometimes cutting everyone off is the first time you stop performing. It's not hard to disappear. It's hard to be misunderstood. When you go quiet, people react. You've changed. You're acting distant. You think you're better now. And suddenly you're not just resting, you're defending. Because humans are wired for belonging. Your brain doesn't just want connection, it wants confirmation. Confirmation that you matter, that you're still part of the tribe. But when you step away from your circle, your identity flickers. You're no longer the funny one, the dependable one, the one who always replies first. Now you're just quiet, and quiet can feel like disappearing. Be honest, part of you didn't just fear losing them. You feared becoming forgettable. That's the real sting. Look at Ayana Koji in Classroom of the Elite. He understands hierarchies perfectly. He knows how to climb. He knows how to dominate socially. He chooses not to because attachment makes you predictable, and predictability makes you controllable. But here's what they don't show you about detachment. It's lonely, not dramatic, not tragic, just subtly isolating. And that's why most people go back. Not because the group was healthy, but because uncertainty feels worse than being needed. Cutting everyone off isn't just social, it's surgical. You're not removing people, you're removing a version of yourself. The agreeable one, the over-explaining one, the "it's fine, even when it wasn't fine" one. And when that version dissolves, you don't feel powerful, you feel undefined. No soundtrack, no glow-up montage, just you and your thoughts at 1 a.m. In Vinland Saga, when Thorfinn says, "I have no enemies," it sounds peaceful. But look closer. For years, revenge gave him direction. Without it, he isn't enlightened. He's empty. That's identity collapse. And it doesn't feel like wisdom. It feels like free falling without a script. You start questioning everything. Was I authentic or was I just adapting? Was I loyal or afraid to be alone? Did they actually value me or just my availability? And here's the part nobody romanticizes. The void is uncomfortable. There are no notifications validating you, no roles reinforcing who you are. Just you, raw, unperformed. And that's terrifying, because if you can't tolerate that silence, you'll go back to the group chat, back to the role, back to being useful instead of whole. Not because it's better, because it's familiar. Growth begins where familiarity ends. But most people never stay there long enough to find out. Now here's the part that hurts. Isolation doesn't automatically make you disciplined. Some of you didn't enter a training arc. You entered a scrolling arc. You muted the world and then just watched it from a distance. That's not evolution. That's emotional hiding. Cutting everyone off removes noise. It doesn't create structure. You can disappear and still avoid the hard conversations with yourself. Psychologists call this avoidant coping. It feels like control, but it's postponement. Look at Thorfinn after losing his purpose. He doesn't instantly become wise. He drifts, he works, he exists, but he's not yet rebuilding. Isolation removed the war. It didn't give him direction. This is the fork. Silence can sharpen you, or it can slowly decay you. And the difference isn't time, it's intention. So the real question isn't, do you cut everyone off? It's, are you using this space to rebuild or to hide more comfortably? Because the training arc doesn't start when you disappear. It starts when you decide to build. This is where everything changes, because silence alone doesn't transform you. Structure does. Look at solo leveling. After the double dungeon, Jinwoo doesn't announce anything. He trains daily quests, push-ups until failure, running until exhaustion. Dungeon clearing alone. No applause, just repetition. Identity follows behavior. Not feelings, not motivation, behavior. Cognitive psychology shows that repeated action reshapes self-concept over time. You don't become confident by thinking differently. You become confident by stacking evidence. Jinwoo didn't feel strong first. He accumulated strength quietly. When you cut everyone off, you create space. But if that space isn't filled with disciplined action, it fills itself with self-doubt. This is where most training arcs die. So ask yourself, are you hiding or are you leveling up? If you're not building, you're just isolating with better branding. Because disappearing only becomes powerful when you're building something in the dark. Now, here's the subtle danger. When you start growing quietly, it feels empowering. You see who was draining you. You see who was immature, and slowly you start feeling above it. Some of you didn't grow. You just became condescending. Calm, but condescending. Above the drama. Above the people who don't get it. That's the ego trap. Look at Ayana Koji in Classroom of the Elite. His emotional detachment gives him control. But if detachment becomes superiority, growth stops. Psychology calls this defensive grandiosity. It's when independence becomes armor. When I don't need anyone becomes a shield against vulnerability. Stoicism isn't emotional coldness, it's regulation. If cutting everyone off makes you calmer, good. If it makes you bitter, that's ego. Isolation should sharpen you, not harden you. The real test isn't whether you can be alone. It's whether you can be alone without becoming arrogant. Here's the final stage no one prepares you for: coming back. Disappearing is easier. Returning requires boundaries. After discipline and reflection, you'll see the dynamics clearly. The subtle disrespect, the emotional immaturity, Things you tolerated before now feel obvious. Now you decide. Shrink back into the old role or stand firm in the new one. Jinwoo doesn't return loud. Same room, same people, same noise, different presence. He returns grounded. Thorfinn doesn't return revenge-driven. He returns principled. Real power isn't dramatic. It's stable. When you no longer need validation, your presence changes. That's the aura shift. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He didn't say withdraw forever. He said retreat to regain clarity. Stoicism doesn't glorify isolation. It uses it. You step back. You regulate, you refine, and then you return. The modern world confuses availability with value, constant communication, constant accessibility. But heroes don't evolve in public, they evolve in private. So, if you cut everyone off, ask yourself this: are you rebuilding or escaping? Because the intention changes everything. Let's zoom out. Cutting everyone off is dramatic. It feels powerful, but it's just the doorway. The real transformation begins after. Thorfinn didn't just stop fighting. He chose peace. Jinwoo didn't just train. He pursued mastery. Ayano didn't just detach. He mastered self-control. Isolation is not the evolution. It's the environment where evolution becomes possible. If your silence doesn't increase discipline, it becomes delay. If your withdrawal doesn't increase clarity, it becomes avoidance. And avoidance always disguises itself as peace at first, until you realize nothing about you has changed. That's the danger, because comfort feels similar to growth, but growth requires friction. So the real question isn't, did you cut everyone off? It's, what version of yourself are you building while no one's watching? Remember how this started? Every hero disappears before they become unstoppable. Not loudly, not dramatically, they just go quiet, and when they return, they're different. That's where you are. Not lost, not broken, between versions. Thorfinn lost who he was before he found peace. Jinwoo vanished before he became undeniable. Ayano stepped back before he rose. The world thinks you disappeared, but maybe you just stepped off the stage. And when you come back, not louder, not seeking approval, just sharper, that's when it clicks. You weren't isolating, you were evolving. Because when you return, you won't need to say a word. They'll see it. Disappear if you must. Just make sure you return different.